Hey, Michael, welcome to 𝙃𝙧𝙧𝙧 podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Michael, our community may or may not know you very well on 𝙃𝙧𝙧 Club. It'd be awesome to just get to know a little bit about your story, a bit about your background. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and maybe how you came to know the Lord?
How I came to know the Lord. Well, I remember at a very young age, probably around 5 years old, where I remember my mother, explaining she was explaining Jesus to me, and I knew in my mind and in my heart, even at that very young age, that was something that I was drawn to and that I wanted to accept and be a part of. And
wow, cool.
So I believe I came to know the Lord at a very young age.
Wow. So you've walked with him, you've known him all of your life since then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. What has that been like? Has it been like a pretty straightforward growth experience, or ups and downs, or?
Oh, it's been a lot of ups and downs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been a lot of ups and downs, Katie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I think that's relatable. I mean, I've experienced similar. I came to know the Lord when I was, I remember asking my dad if I could pray with him and ask the Lord into my heart, and I was about 4. But yeah, it certainly wasn't smooth sailing for me after that. There was, a lot of ups and downs. But I think that the relationship that I had with him early on, since that point in time, it really was a grounding force for me. I mean, my parents didn't stay together and had a bit of a rocky home, and I felt like, to me, that was the closest friend that I had, was God. And I really leaned on that as a kid even. And I remember even just always wanting to tell my friends about how much they needed to know God and have a relationship with him, and since when I was little, because for me, I could not have lived without it. I couldn't have gone through those younger years without knowing him and having a relationship with him. So when I meet people who come to know the Lord later in life, like for me, it's always interesting to hear those stories, because I don't know that I could have gotten to where I did if I hadn't already had him in my life. So, but tell me about yourself, Michael. I mean, tell me about some of those ups and downs if you feel like sharing.
Well, I was born in Colorado, and we moved away from Colorado when I was about 5 as well. Mm-hmm. And we moved to Arizona. And so I grew up in Arizona from, about the age 5 to 18. Mm-hmm. And there were kind of a lot of ups and downs throughout junior high and high school, and with home life and all of that you go through, mm-hmm. The teenage years, and it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. But when I was 18, I ended up moving across country by myself with 2 suitcases and a backpack. Mm-hmm. And
wow.
Yeah, so I moved by myself to Connecticut, and I just kind of felt the call of the Lord on my life, where you just step out in faith and trust him. And I ended up going through hell.
Uh-huh.
I was so young, I didn't know anything really about life. I mean, as you're going through your schooling years, it kind of gives you a foundation of things you need to know. But once you step into the real world and you have to pay all your own bills and rent and everything, then it's a whole nother ball game.
Right.
So that, I was learning that and trying to follow the Lord at the same time, and it definitely was not easy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want me to go into the ups and downs of, my high school years and junior high, or if you want me to go more into what I experienced on the East Coast.
Well, I'm interested to know, Michael, you said that you felt like led by the Lord to move. How did that come about? Like, what were you feeling, sensing, or hearing from him that made you think that it was him telling you to move? And why did he tell you to move? Was it for a specific reason that you knew of, or you knew that he told you to pick up and go?
Well, it started with him drawing me out of the lifestyle I was in with, my girlfriend and my party friends and all that. And
sure.
And that's really where it started. I just felt him really drawing me closer to himself, and I didn't know why, but I just was so strongly drawn towards him.
Okay.
And there was nothing that mattered more to me than that relationship.
Yeah.
And so I ended up leaving all that behind, my girlfriend and all my old friends and all of that, which was and the place that I grew up, which was, really all I knew. So that was, very, very hard to do. And I remember I was reading in the Word, and I remember reading about Abraham, how he believed God, and
right.
And he left to go to the land that God had called him to go. And that was really the basis of what I did in stepping out in faith was through that example of reading that example, in the Bible.
Yeah.
And, come to find out, as you read about Abraham, he might have expected to receive the promises that God was giving him right away or soon.
Yep.
In his own understanding or from his own perspective, but come to find out it was a much greater and a much bigger promise,
Right. Yeah.
And so I just felt like God was calling me into that same promise and into that same lifestyle of faith.
Yeah. Yeah. So, wow, Michael. So how many years ago was that you moved out on your own? You were 18.
When I left, I was 18, and I went through all kinds of stuff from 18 to about 23. I went through a lot of hardships, and I ended up joining a 2-year boot camp program that was a Christian boot camp program in New Hampshire. And there again, I just completely stepped out in faith, and I didn't really know anybody there, just like I did the first time from Arizona to Connecticut. And then I just did it again into this program, and it was, again, very, very difficult and with a lot of hardships and a lot of pressing and experiencing character growth and in ways that I had never known before.
Yeah. So what motivated you to seek out that program? Like, what was the impetus for that? Like, why did you feel like you needed that specific type of help in your life?
It was all the drawing of God, of him drawing me to himself into a deeper relationship with him, calling me to himself, and me obeying that calling, walking in obedience towards that. And really, like when I was in Connecticut, I was just kind of living there in an apartment that gave me a lot of problems, and I had to experience a lot of things that taught me a lot about life for the first time. Like don't give a cash deposit on your first apartment or any apartment. Really.
Right.
So, I'm making all these mistakes, and of course I was the one that signed for the lease, and the roommates that were in that apartment weren't faithful. They weren't faithful in paying their portion of the rent, which was really not that much at all. And I was just put through just hell. But,
wow.
you know, it all came down to God drawing me to himself in a deeper way. And I continually was drawn towards that, even though I stepped out in faith in that great way.
Yeah.
With leaving Arizona, I just wanted to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what ultimately drew me to join that program, is because I just wanted to serve him and to know him and to be a vessel to be used by him in any way that I could, and in every way that I could, you know?
Yeah. So I'd love to know more about like that, Michael. Like, what is it about God or your relationship with him? What is it about his character or even, you know, the word, or what is it that it has inspired you so much to draw closer to him? Is it the experiences that you've had? Is it things that that you know about him? What is that draws you to him?
Well, he is life itself, so everything outside of him takes on the characteristic of death, and I think that just that unexplainable awesomeness of God that's hard to really put into words. Like, say, I can go through a dry season where I don't experience his presence very often, you know, like a wilderness, and compare that to me going through a season where I'm experiencing his presence on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Once you begin to experience his presence like that, there's nothing else in the world that can compare. Right. With that, with the creator of all things, right. And being able to come into his presence and experience him on a daily basis. There's nothing that you can satisfy yourself with that will satisfy you more than that. Right. And so I think that's really what it is. It's just, you know, loving his presence, loving his character, loving the way that he teaches me things, the way that he shows me things, learning his heart, experiencing his heart over certain matters and in certain ways. Just once you connect yourself to God in that way, you just want more. Right. You just want to go deeper.
Yeah, I really relate to that. When did that first, like, that kind of experience that you had with him in his presence, was that something that you've always had since you were a child and you first kind of connected with him, or is this something that developed for you? Like, when did that come about?
No, it's something that developed as I stepped out in faith. Yeah. In obedience. And it's not something that I had growing up in my teen years. And I even remember certain points where I would try to seek his word on my own. And it just seemed like I couldn't connect to him in the same way. Wow. And I'm not sure why that was. Maybe he knew what I had to go through, that I wouldn't be able to stand like I wanted to stand. Who knows? I don't know. But what I told you initially is, as I stepped out in faith and obedience and continued to pursue him, you know, the more he was faithful to draw near to me and show himself faithfully to me, you know. Wow.
Amazing. And you've shared with me, Michael, a number of dreams and visions that you've had. When did that begin for you? Has that been a lifelong thing, having dreams and visions, or was that also something that developed?
I think, it's something that has developed as well, for sure. But, you know, even growing up, I was exposed to the spiritual realm where I, you know, was even attacked by demons as a child. Okay. So I was familiar with the works of darkness and evil in the world, even as a young child. Right. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. And so the dreams and visions, they started a little bit later on, though, when you were starting to kind of receive more information, you felt like, from the Lord, or was that really early too? The deeper I went into him, I think they really started to come into fruition right around the time that I moved out to Connecticut is probably when they started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I had an experience in 2018 where I had a really sharp decline in my health, and I felt really impressed by the Lord to spend any really extended time in prayer at that time. So I was spending probably between 2 and 4 hours a day in prayer, just really pressing in. And it was at that time that I had like an explosion of dreams and visions begin. And I had never really had that before in my life. I'd very rarely dreamed or remembered my dreams. So, and at this point in time, I was waking up, with really severe health issues, but every morning I'd wake up having these really clear and vivid, and it felt like it wasn't just a dream. Like I felt like God was with me, speaking to me during the night, and I would wake up with these dreams and I'd sit down and pray them through, and he kind of taught me this process of learning how to understand his voice through dreams, and then afterwards some visions as well. But it was new to me. It wasn't something that I had lived with all of my life until I really spent that time in prayer that he led me into. So, yeah, I can relate. If you wanted to share, Michael, a dream or two or any of those visions, I'd love to hear them.
Sure. Excuse me. I had this really profound and powerful rapture vision on 7/1/2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just read it off to you, and then we can kind of discuss it a little if you want.
Yeah.
So here it is. This is I had an amazing spiritual experience with God a little while ago. It was pertaining to a revelation of Christ and his bride, the church. I was laying in my bed listening to instrumental worship music. The presence of God was in my room with me as I laid there with my eyes closed. I began to see a vision from the Lord. I was underwater and I could not see myself, only what God was showing me. I saw a beautiful, magnificent woman dressed in white, all white, a beautiful bride dressed in a beautiful wedding dress. She was flawless, her eyes completely focused on what was drawing her upwards out of the water. I looked up and saw a brilliant white light. The white light was obviously God, and the woman was his bride. The amazing thing about this vision is that I could literally feel what this woman in the dream was feeling. I cannot describe how wonderful this feeling was, only that tears from my eyes would not and could not stop streaming down my face for quite some time. Tears of absolute and pure joy. This was a revelation of Christ and his bride, the church, and I am a part of that church. The love I felt was and still is undescribable. Pure, full, true, amazing love like you have never felt before. Yeah. That is what is waiting for me in heaven. I never understood the love I am describing when the word talks about the bride of Christ, but after experiencing it, I will hold on to this strong revelation until it is my time to go home. The woman in the vision was slowly being lifted up out of the water towards this brilliant light.
Whoa, Michael, that is so cool. So she was in the water. So do you mean like she was totally submerged in water and she was being lifted out of that, or? Okay.
Yeah, it was almost like, it wasn't like she was like, drowning or anything, but she was just underwater.
Right.
So obviously the water signified something, and she was being lifted up out of these deep waters, like it was a large body of water, almost like an ocean. Yeah,
it reminds me of a psalm that talks about that, being drawn out of many waters, deep waters. Yeah, wow, what a powerful dream. that the way you talk about having those experiences of, you know, feeling experientially what that feels like, that love, as opposed to just having it in your mind, like just having the concept of God loving you in your mind, are two very, very different things, aren't they? I've experienced that also. Can you still feel that now when you think about the dream and the vision?
Yeah, even reading it off, and it was almost like, that's why it's hard for me to just say it was a vision, because
right.
It was almost like it was so powerful and so intense that it was almost like it was like a trance.
Yeah.
Or like I was actually taken somewhere.
Yeah.
Even though my body was just laying there, you know, listening to instrumental worship music. You know, It was very, very powerful.
So did that come about just spontaneously, Michael, one night? Like, had you been praying for a long time? Were you seeking God over a period of time and then this came about, or was this just a happenstance thing?
Well, again, he started drawing me and kind of waking me up in 2020 again. And
yeah.
And so as I was just being drawn towards him and seeking him, you know, on a regular basis during one of my times of just spending time in his presence, it just happened, you know. It wasn't like I knew it was going to happen or I expected it to happen. It just happened all in his timing, you know.
Incredible. Amazing. Yeah, that is so cool, Michael. Did you have any other ones that you were on the top of your mind that you wanted to share?
Well, yeah, I had another one recently on 11/26/22. Just very, very recently. I could read that one off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had some extremely powerful dreams just now. In one part of the dream, I was traveling with an influential friend. He was a congressman. As we were traveling to his home, there was a fountain to our right. The water would light up and change different neon bright colors. You could look at it and look away, and what you were seeing on the fountain would in a way reflect to what you were looking at elsewhere. Kind of like when you look at the sun for a moment and turn away to look at something else. As we traveled to his home, I remember him being quite kind and friendly. He was quite hospitable. His home was very big and he seemed quite wealthy. I remember we thought and spoke something at the exact same time. Our thoughts and actions seemed to align perfectly at that moment. As I traveled through his home, I remember it being quite spacious. I went to an upstairs room, and it was a room that whatever you thought and dwelled on would manifest and appear in the room. Someone in the home was dwelling on thoughts that were unclean or not edifying, and thousands of bugs appeared everywhere in this big upstairs room. I thought these bugs came from me, but they didn't. I kept trying to pop them to get through them to the entrance I had initially come in. I was either popping them or killing them, trying to get away and get through. The owner of the home came there and was a bit upset that I had to deal with these bugs in his home. He made the bugs disappear and was trying to talk to the individual that had made them appear. She was hiding in some small rooms behind a certain small door. The owner of the home kept knocking on the small doors individually to try and get her to come out, but she didn't want to for some reason. When we went outside, I remember this man talking with another man who also seemed to be influential. This is where he stated he was a congressman, I believe. We began to look up towards some mountains. There was a massive amount of water flowing down towards us over these mountaintops. We were waiting there, standing in faith that God would rescue us from these massive waters quickly rushing straight at the three of us. Just when it seemed like we would be overtaken by these massive waters or waves, I looked up and saw a smiling face coming right towards me. It looked like an angel. He whipped me up away from these waters. We began to travel with incredible speed, straight through the sky's atmosphere and the galaxy, up, and away we went to heaven's shore, I believe. The next scene transitioned to some sort of spaceship. I was inside a spaceship, it seemed. The scenery around me was amazing, and it seemed quite heavenly. I remember some sort of golden lining sticking out to me, woven throughout a tunnel-like area. Everything seemed to be gold or golden. Right at the last moment, I was rescued from these waters and brought up to heaven. I had to stand in faith and wait faithfully for my faithful King to rescue me through his holy angel.
Wow, Michael, that is so cool. What did you feel waking up from this dream, and what did you feel like after you prayed about it that the Lord was trying to show you through this?
Well, but it's funny because before I had this dream, like that night, the day before that, I was frustrated and angry and just having a bad day and kind of just letting it all out and trying to just vent a little.
Okay.
And the Lord responded to me in such a kind and loving way with a very powerful dream. And I believe that, throughout this dream, like he's revealing, his heart towards me and his character and how kind he is and friendly and hospitable and just,
wow,
everything that would be desirable for us to, want God to be towards us, his kindness, his loving kindness. We don't want to experience the wrath of God or the anger of God. We want to experience his kindness, his loving kindness, his mercy towards us. And that was the way that he expressed himself towards me, that, he was just like a loving father,
Amazing, Michael. That is so cool. I love that. Thank you for sharing those dreams and visions, and that's really powerful. It's amazing when you have these experiences like dreams or visions, and you can sometimes just wake up from them and or have these visions and have your own ideas in your head. But when, I don't know about you, but when I take it to the Lord and I pray about it and ask the Holy Spirit to reveal things to me, oftentimes there is so much more within the dream or the vision than I initially had expected just from my own analysis. The Holy Spirit just unfolds and reveals layers of revelation the way that only he can. It's really amazing to experience. So, Michael, when did you come to learn about the 𝙃𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧? Is that a recent thing for you, or is that something you've known about for a long time? Well,
I remember when I was living in Connecticut, I would hear about I would hear people say, like, we're the fig tree generation and things like that, and I didn't pay any attention to it really. It was never something that I was really focused on. I didn't really, for some reason, I don't know why, but here down the road, the Lord brings it to my attention in his faithfulness, So I didn't really listen to it when I heard about it years before from other people, but when he brought it to my attention, then you got my ears, you got my attention. Okay, I'm listening now.
Yeah.
All right.
So when was that? When did he grab your attention? How did he do that?
Well, yeah, that's from this first vision here in 2020.
Oh, that's when it started.
2020.
Okay.
That was the first.
Wow.
That was when it started. Yeah.
Wow, off with a bang. Yeah. That's cool. Oh, that's awesome, Michael. Well, I appreciate you sharing with us. I mean, it's just really good to get to know a little bit about you and your story. It's encouraging to hear life with the Lord, even with someone who's been in relationship with him since they were little. It's not necessarily a straightforward journey. It can be up and down and, difficult at times, but it's rewarding.
Oh, yeah.
And like you were saying, as life has gone on, you've only been drawn closer and closer into him, even though it hasn't gone necessarily as straightforward as you thought it was going to when he first called you to move, but he's worth it.
Well, yeah, the enemy has tried to pull me away and draw me away from the things of God, obviously. And God has a way of bringing it all together, where that scripture comes to mind, that he's faithful to bring to completion the good work that he's began.
Yeah, yeah. Amen. Yeah. Well, we're definitely looking forward to seeing all of that. So yeah, thanks for sharing with us, Michael. I really appreciate it. If anyone who's listening would like to catch up with Michael and chat with him, you can find him on 𝙃𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧, www.𝙃𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧. We also have a Google app on the Google Play Store, and we will have an Apple app that's out soon. And if you would like to share a bit of your own story and, encourage other believers and those who are walking with the Lord with what you've experienced with your walk with Christ, then please send me a message on 𝙃𝙧𝙧𝙧 Club and we'll get together and have a chat sometime. So thanks, Michael. God bless you.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks for having me.